Hey everyone, welcome back to Playing Quietly. My name is Ryan, and today I've got another Remnant to the Awakened King build guide for you. Today we're going to be talking about the Vampire Bat, aka Lucille build. As the name suggests, this build is going to rotate around lifesteal through melee damage. To start things off in our Prime archetype slot, we're going to be going with Medic. This is going to give us access to Regenerator. We're also going to be getting access to Invigorated, which is again going to grant us 25% increase to all damage and 5% crit chance. We also are going to be benefiting from Benevolence, which is going to increase our relic efficacy by 15% and heal nearby allies for 30% of our total heal value. For the skill slot, I like to use the Healing Shield just because this is a very tanky build, and this is going to give us access to another form of damage mitigation should we need it. In our second archetype slot, we're going to be going with Challenger. This is going to give us access to Close Quarters, which is going to grant us 35% increase to all damage to enemies within 10 meters. Damage bonus tapers off at 20 meters. Critical strike chance is increased by another 10%. Intimidating Presence is also going to benefit us in the tanking category, as enemies are going to deal 10% damage when they are within 15 meters of us after we activate one of our Challenger skills. Powerlifter is also going to be helping us out in the stamina department, and while we aren't going to benefit from the first part of Face of Danger, we will definitely benefit from the second part, which gives us 10% increased damage upon relic use when we are within 10 meters of an enemy. For the Challenger archetype skill, I like to go with Juggernaut. While we aren't going to be benefiting from the Bulwark stacks, we are going to benefit from the 15% movement speed, the melee speed, and the reduction in stamina costs, as well as the increase in melee damage by a nice 50%, as well as the reduction in stagger level. For armor, we are going to be going with a full set of the Leto Mark II. For our relic, we are going to be going with Crystal Heart. On use, we are going to regenerate 115% of our maximum health over 10 seconds. Movement speed is going to be reduced by 50%, and incoming damage is going to be reduced by 25%, and that's going to last us 10 seconds. Now, since we are a melee build, that movement speed is not going to be a huge hindrance to us, so don't really worry about that. For our relic fragments, we are going to be going with Mythic Armor Effectiveness, Mythic Health, and Mythic Melee Damage. Moving on to the jewelry. In our first slot, we have the Atonement Fold. As in our last build, this is going to be the engine that drives a lot of what makes this build work. The Atonement Fold, of course, is going to self-inflict bleeding status upon us, causing 1.1 bleed damage per second and increasing our critical strike by 10%. Next up is going to be the Hardcore Metal Band. Taking damage adds 1 stack of Bulwark, which individually falls off after 10 seconds and is going to give us a max of 5 stacks. Now, because we are taking damage from the Atonement Fold, we are going to constantly have those 5 stacks of Bulwark, giving us a nice 25% damage reduction. After that, we have the Alchemy Stone. This is going to increase our base lifesteal by 6% while suffering from a negative status effect or blight, again, given to us by our Atonement Fold. After that, we're going to go with Dying Ember, which is going to grant us 6% base melee damage as lifesteal. Finally, in our next slot, we are going to go with the Neckbone Necklace. This is going to reduce the damage of status effects applied to wearer by 50%, and we are going to gain 25% increased damage while suffering from a status effect or blight. Moving on to our weapons, we're going to start in the melee slot, as this is going to be what it is centered around. We are going to be using the Wrathbringer. Wrathbringer's onboard mod, Awakening, says that incoming damage grants Awakening, which increases melee damage by 5% per stack for 10 seconds, with a max of 10 stacks. And again, because we are taking bleeding damage from Atonement Fold, we are going to constantly be at those 10 stacks. In the Mutator slot, I recommend going with Vampire Blade. This is going to increase our melee damage by 25% while we are within 10 meters of a bleeding entity, which is going to be us. But at level 10, melee hits versus a bleeding target will lifesteal 3% of base damage dealt. Now, this is going to present a problem to us as of now, we don't have anything that is going to apply bleeding. That is where our next weapon is going to come into effect. Now, you have a lot of different options here when it comes to your weapons, but this is the setup that I like to run for our range. In our long gun slot, I like to go with the Sparkfire shotgun. This is, of course, going to add our burning damage, which isn't going to be all that important to us, but the Twisting Wounds is. At level 10, Twisting Wounds is going to increase the range damage of this weapon by 20% to bleeding targets, and this weapon's range, weak point, and critical strikes are going to apply bleeding damage of 900 bleed over 10 seconds. So that is going to get us that extra 3% lifesteal on the Wrathbringer. In the mod slot, I like to run Song of Aether, as it's just going to give us a little bit more damage mitigation. Lastly, in our handgun slot, I like to run the Enigma with the Fetid Wounds Mutator. This is going to give us access to 2 more dots, not that we really need it, but it is there for when we run into some of the weaknesses of this build. Alright, so let's take a look at our traits. So of course we are going to be getting Strong Back and Triage automatically, but I also like to put 10 points into Fortify for our armor effectiveness, 10 points into Regrowth to counteract the bleed from Atonement Fold, 8 points to bring us to level 10 in Vigor to give us an extra 30 health, 10 points in Endurance to give us extra 30 stamina, 9 points to bring us to level 10 in Spirit to give us plus 20% mod generation, 10 points into Arcane Strikes to give us extra melee mod generation, 10 points into Bark Skin to give us some extra damage reduction, 8 points into Shade Skin to give us extra elemental damage reduction, and finally 10 points into Siphoner to give us an extra 3% lifesteal. Alright, so I have re-rolled a fresh Forlorn Coast on Apocalypse level so that we can take a look at how this build is going to play. Now we are at the first group of enemies here at the canal, so let's go ahead and pull. Typically we are going to pull with our shotgun so that we can hopefully get those bleed damage. Oh, there we go. And let's go ahead and put on our Crystal Heart so we can see just how much DR that we really have here. And we see we do plenty of damage with our Wrathbringer. Go ahead and pull over here. Perfect. Now let's go find that big group of enemies. Alright, so here we are at the big group with the Elite Speaker. Let's go ahead and give them a pull. That was a terrible shot. Alright, let's see. What do we get here? We got a Spiteful, Drain, Vortex. Okay, so this is actually going to work in our favor. Let's go ahead and shield up. Oh, we got our heart. Let's shield. And we're going to go to town. See, we are doing quite a bit of damage. We're not taking all that much damage. And the damage that we are taking, we are able to basically heal it right back up with our lifesteal. That one was quite a big one. It's not a big deal. We're going to hit our heart. And we are fine. We see because we still only have heavy roll, we are still able to dodge some things, which is definitely nice, even with this really heavy armor. Alright, so let's address the elephant in the room. This is a melee build and is definitely not suited for the entirety of the game. There are some things that we can do to counterbalance that. For one, if we have access to it, I would highly recommend on bosses with flying enemies or enemies that are hard to reach, swapping out the Wrathbringer with the World's Edge and the Shocker Mutator. So not only is this going to give us a nice projectile, but Shocker at level 10 is going to empower the weapon after 5 hits. While empowered, the next charged melee hit strikes all enemies within a 7-meter range for 300 shock damage, and at level 10, that shock damage is now going to apply overload, dealing 750 damage over 5 seconds. So while it is not perfect for mini-ranged bosses, this does definitely help. Not to mention the fact that we do have all of our dots that we can apply with the Enigma, plus the Sparkfire shotgun setup. Alright everyone, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have a lot more Remnant 2 content coming your way. I have a few more builds. This one just seemed really fun, and some of the viewer comments kind of inspired me to make it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know how it works out for you in the comments down below. And don't forget to check back for more Remnant 2 content. Until then, we will see you guys next time. Have yourselves a good one.